All right, so I'm going to go over pixel art and how to do it, and it may be I may have to speed through some of the pixel art, but when I'm actually doing it, I'm not going to go through. I'm not going to go through the whole lecture that I went over, but I will talk about a few things that are important foundations for understanding how to do it. So. We have here from the lecture an example of what is not pixel art and what is pixel art. Over here, obviously on the left side, this is not pixel art. It's a fantastic illustration, but you can see the anti-aliased lines that are around it. Over here, we have pixel art, and we can see the stepping of the outlines, which we'll talk about in a second, and we have a very limited palette. So we have 15 colors plus transparency. So it's readable. We're able to see the distinction between the foreground and the background, and that is an important aspect of pixel art. We can also see other examples of pixel art, things like this Rick and Morty. We can see the outlines with some rim lighting in the back. We can also see dithering in the background over here. This is something that is automated in Photoshop. We can see it in very, very low character, very small images, and we can see it especially in isometric art, which is a lack of perspective, just straight on. There's no foreshortening of anything, so that they can fit within a certain confined areas. And then we can see higher resolution pixel art here. It still has a limited color palette. That's an important thing of it. The other thing that's important about pixel art is knowing how to make the outlines. So we can see here these outlines are choppy. There's no diagonal connection like this. With a diagonal connection, it gives you more room to fill it with color. And also, if you use this, it will be predominantly, you'll be seeing a Photoshop spectrum analysis that black is far more a prevalent color. Diagonal lines, when they are drawn in the computer, it will, I forget the name of the algorithm, it starts with a B, I don't remember. It will calculate it in sometimes unusual ways that's not very good for pixel art. So what we want to have is this 2 2 2 2 2 1 1 1 1, or in this case I think it's 5 and 5. Automated pixel outlines like this, we have 7 2 1 2 7. So that's important also to simulate that. Whereas if you have the computer do it, all right, no, this is the computer doing it. Okay, no, this is the computer doing it. So we might have something a little bit strange like this, and we want to have something a little bit more rounded like this. We look at some outlines. Outlines can, without this diagonal, these diagonal pixels, we may want to have a point on it, and we'll have to have points such as this in order to accentuate a point in the object. You'll also notice here on the left we have a lot more black lines, and over on the right we have fewer. And this is so that we can see more of the color on the actual object, whereas over here there's a lot more black. We're left with a lot less detail. Also, something I talk about in class is Alphonse Mucha from Art Nouveau. He was a Art Nouveau artist, and interestingly enough, his art was very kind of followed the idea of pixel art a little bit. So we can see here with Mucha the outlines that he has here, very thick outlines, accentuating and delineating the foreground from the background. So it's an old style. It's not just something necessarily that's done for 8-bit games or whatever. And you can see that on the inside everything is soft and nicely colored. You can still see some delineation here with some of the decorations on her dress. So it's interesting historically to look at it like that as well. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't. The other thing too is that sometimes the outlines will be um, removed so that if the character is holding a stick like this, we can see that there's the stick goes right to the hand. The bottom of the feet would be removed so it looks like the character is sitting or standing on the grass. If there was a black outline there, it might look as though the character was hovering. We can also use outlines to give the impression of three-dimensionality. Having these small little pixels over here shows that her hair is kind of going out in front, and that implies a little bit of three-dimensionality. And outlines too don't always have to be black. Very, very, very important to remember that. Don't always have to be black. They can be black if that's the style. But when you choose colors that are closer to the colors that are filling them, or outline colors that's closest to the fill color, you'll get a very nice style. So for instance, over here, we have a darker green rather than just black. And if you have your whole scene that looks like that, you'll notice a decided difference between the ones that only have black outlines and the ones that have this outline. It's a nice, softer look and much more appealing. Another example is this tiny little character here where the shirt is darker red and the pants are darker blue. Fill colors are also important. HSV, hue, saturation, and value, or lightness, saturation, and hue. This also helps to give it a sense of three-dimensionality. If we have our pixel art with a little bit of shading, we can also see that this also helps to bring about a sense of three-dimensionality. So here we have the outlines with black and flat colors. Here we have the outlines in black with some nice shading. And here we have some outlines that are colors that are darker from the fill color. So there's a slight difference, and it can really help to make your image, your pixel art, look really good. So let's say that you have an image. I have here a little monkey. Isn't he adorable? And I have a Cintiq, so I'm going to be drawing on the tablet. It's so much easier to draw if you have a tablet. You don't have to have a Cintiq, but if you have a little tiny tablet, even a 3x5 tablet, 4x6, whatever they are, and you can get them for around $45, $40, it makes it so much easier. In all my game companies, pretty much all of them, I had a little tablet right next to my computer, so I could work on textures. So say we have an image, and the best way to start is to start with either an image that you've drawn on the computer or an image that you may have drawn on paper, and then scanned it in. This way we can start with a bigger image. If anyone ever remembers Shrinky Dinks, and I talked about this in class, they were a thing in the 80s where for Christmas trees, you'd draw on this little piece of plastic and it was bigger, and you'd put it in the oven, then it would shrink. So when you shrink it down, it has a really nice, everything's really sharp. So you know that you couldn't draw like that unless you had like a 0.005 micron pen, or a rapidograph, if anyone knows what those are. So we'll start with a bigger image, and here we have, what is our image size? We have 768 by 828. So we'll start with this one. You start with a bigger one. It should be in RGB color, and we want to crop it down a little bit. You press C for crop, or you press this little button over here. We're going to bring it down a little bit. We're going to make the pixel art much smaller eventually. So a few things about Photoshop for those that are unfamiliar with it. These are our layers. So we have this as a background layer right now. If this was a scanned image, there might be some background image, some noise that you might want to get rid of. The first thing we'll do is we'll double click on this background image, and what it does is it says new layer, and we click OK. We've turned it into a new layer. So what this means is if I hide it, and you hide it with a little eye thing, we see the background, and the background is transparent. So if you were going to do this for from a scan, you might want to press Control L, which does levels, or you might want to go to Image Adjustment, and levels are in that. And since this is nicely black and white, it's not going to really help. But you can generally probably want to move this to the right a little bit, move this down, this top down a little bit, and bring this up. Since this isn't a scan, you're not going to see much of a difference. But what we want to do is make sure that that background is nice and clear. So now if we had some stuff in the background that we wanted to get rid of, we would press E for erase, and there's the eraser. And here is our the size that we would erase. So if I go like this, I'm going to erase a lot. We don't want to erase that much. So I press Control Z to undo that. We change the size of the eraser with the brackets. So the left bracket makes it smaller, the right bracket makes it bigger. So we can make that smaller. We can also change the hardness of the eraser. So that would mean that the hardness, this would be a soft edge. This would be a hard edge. So if I cut through that, you can see that there's a hard edge on there. And if I bring the hardness down, there's a soft edge. So say I had some background noise that I wanted to get rid of. I'm going to bring the hardness up, and I might look for some background stuff that I wanted to get rid of. So I might go around here and draw all around here to get rid of any background noise. And I'll just do this as an example. And what I also might do is like try to get in a little bit closer to the edges. Doing the levels thing with the Control L, that will also help to make your outlines a lot more black. So that can get to be a problem if you drew it with pencil. If they still are really light after the levels, you may want to go in and change them, make them a little bit darker. So a couple of other things over here, we have our foreground color and our background color, and then we have this as our color. We can change that color to whatever we want. If I wanted to make some of these lines a little bit better, I would press B for brush, and here's our brush over there, and I could change the colors. Also, we have, when we're doing pixel art, we're not going to want to use a brush because the brush will have some anti-aliasing to it. If we want to zoom in, by the way, we hold down Alt and the middle mouse button, and you can see that you're zooming in. So when we're drawing in pixel art, we want to hold down this brush and we want to go to the pencil tool. This will do lines without any anti-aliasing. So if we had a larger pencil tool, you can see the difference between the brush and the pencil tool. So if we wanted to make these, and I'll erase that, make it smaller. If we wanted to make these lines a little bit better, if there was an issue, I could go in here and I could fix up some of these lines. I could make them darker, etc. But it's looking all right for now. And if you want to move the image around, you just hold down the space bar and the left mouse button and you can move it. So what I would do now is I would create another layer for the background and just make it all white. Like I said before, if you wanted to get rid of some more noise, you can go in here and you go around and remove some of these little areas right there. So I'm going to make a background. So I go down here and I click on the plus sign. Now I've made a layer right on top of our art layer, but I want to put that behind it. So I just click on this and hold, and I drag it underneath. You can see the blue line, and then it switches locations. Now I want to fill this color here with white. So I hold down Shift F5 and I bring that up. Or you can go to Edit and Fill. And I go to Contents and I go to White and I click OK. And now everything is white in the background. Also remember, you have to make sure which layer you're drawing on. So if I were to draw on this, I'd be drawing on this background color. If I draw over here, then I'm drawing on this guy. So the first thing to do once you have this larger format, before you put it into pixel art, is you want to make some color on it. So the color doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It just needs to get there so that you can make the image smaller. And you don't want to draw right on the on this layer. We want to draw on another layer. So if I were to draw on this layer, you know, I might lose that, so I can press Control Z. So what I want to do is I want to create another layer, and I click on this little button down here. We create another layer. It's over our monkey layer. And I'm going to change this to multiply. This way, any colors that I draw are going to be over it. Let's put it to normal. If I have it to normal and I make the color red, clicking over there, if I draw over here, you can see that red is covering up the black. So if I go to normal and I go to multiply, you can see that the black shows up. However, if I wanted to draw some white on this right now, the white wouldn't show up because we're in multiply, so I would have to make another layer. So I'm going to erase that that red stripe. Oh, another thing too, if you're stuck in this over here and you press a key, it's not going to change it. You have to get that blue off of there, and I always just click on channels and go back to layers. So I'm going to press E for eraser. Get rid of that. And now I'm going to do some colorizing, just some simple colorizing. So I press B, make sure that I'm in the pencil brush, and I'm going to find a nice kind of monkey color that I can find out. So I'm going to do. You'll also notice that when you do multiply, that if you draw over the outline, it doesn't cover it up. All right, so we have our image, and you'll notice also that we have some little bits of stuff here. That's okay. So what I did was I held down Alt and I sampled, and we can fill those colors. It's probably not going to be too much of a problem. I made some palettes over here. Obviously, you're going to have white as one of the colors that we're going to do. Oop, I pressed the wrong key. Now after you do that, we're going to save our image and save that. We're also going to want to save as, and we're going to change this to small. So we want to have a backup version so that we can go back to it. And now you can see, kind of interesting, that's what our little outlines look like. It's kind of neat. This is without the colors. So now we're going to reduce the size of the image. We're going to make it to 128, about 128 by 128. We're going to keep it in RGB, and but eventually we're going to go to index color, but not just yet. So image size, and we'll change the larger number, this one, to 128. And we click OK, and there's our little dude. Alt and the left mouse button, and we make it bigger. Now what we want to do is we want to make a nice palette, and we want to remove all of the anti-aliasing. So at this point I would probably and we want to fix all these lines up. At this point I'd probably press the plus sign again to make another layer over it, and this one I would keep as normal because we want to be able to do white. So here's our palette. We want to have our little palette here. I'm going to make my pencil a lot smaller. Probably just make it 1 pixel. So we can see our anti-aliasing here. These are all colors. If we were going to make this into a character right now in index color, we would go to Image, Mode, Index Color, Merge Layers, and then we would get this dithering. So see how that all works? We'd probably want to do perceptual. We want to have 15 colors, include transparency in it, or we can make sure that it was uniform. No, oh dang, no. There we go. So we'd want to fix all this stuff up afterward. We could also remove the diffusion, which would get something like this. So it all depends. If we had, I'll probably add some shading on this a little bit, and we'll see how that works. So let's add a little bit of shading. Probably not. Yeah. So let's do some shading here. We'll do some. So this is our. Actually, before we do that, we're going to mark these guys off so that we just have a very small palette. And let's zoom in a little. And we hold down Alt to sample these guys. Sample this. There we go. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of making darker colors. So I'll sample that one, make it a little bit darker, and we'll try to add. We also have to think about where the direction the light is coming from. So I want it to come from down this way. So I'll do a little bit of darkening. That's too dark. Actually, I'm going to sample that one. There we go. That looks pretty good. So let's make a much lighter color for some highlights. We're trying to keep the colors very simple, not trying to do. All right, so our colors should be getting pretty close to what we need them. Now I'm going to go over these guys, and I'm going to start working on the outlines. All right. So with this set, let's save it. Let's go into mode. Let's go to index color. Let's actually, before we do that, we're going to save it as a new version. Monkey small index. Go to mode, index color, merge layers, and we want 15 colors. So here we see we finally have 15 colors with transparency. I put the dither to none. If we had done some, we'd see some diffusion. So that doesn't look too bad. It looks kind of good, actually, to have a little bit of that dither. If we wanted it to be a little bit more banded and more solid, then we could do that. But I kind of like it being a little bit more solid. So I'm going to click OK on that. And let's get rid of our little palette. We just draw that off. Now what we can also do is if we have some colors in here that we don't want, let's look at our palette. So here's our colors. We have a lot of these guys, which means that somewhere I have some very small issues. And what we can do is you can click on this one and we can change the color, and there's a little pixel right there. So we can find these stray colors if we just change these guys to something else. Then we can go in and we can remove them just like that. So that's an extra color. Oh, there's one down there. So I went into the index and the color table and I found that one, and I can click on this one. I can make that one bright red also. And I pressed enter on the keyboard. So now I find a couple other little ones. This would mess up our drawing, or our character if we were drawing it on the screen. And I just clear these guys out. And we all clear with that. All right, let's go back into our color table. We have 3 more over here. All right, enter on the keyboard, or OK, enter. There we go. And we can clear these guys out. One thing that I want to do is I want to change the eyes to a different color, because it's going to think that that white color is transparent, so his eyes are going to be transparent, and we don't want that. So I'm going to make up a color in the color table. So there he is. Let's go into mode, color table, and we have one more white color. I'm going to make that, oop, there we go. That's we want that one. This one is probably the one that we want to, I don't know why it doesn't want to go off there. This is the one that we want to check. There we go. So let's go in there and fix those guys up. So once we have eliminated those, we can actually go back in and we can add a couple other, oh look, I have a whole side over there that's all black. Is that black? Yeah, no. Weird. All right, so we should have that set up. Let's go in here and choose one of these red colors. And let's change that to a much lighter color for the eyes. So we go in here. Now we can also use a thing called the magic wand, and the magic wand is right here. We click on that one and we hold it down. We get to the magic wand tool. We want to sample all of the layers. In this case, we just have one anti-alias. So we go in there. Let's try a point sample. Let's do contiguous. There we go. Contiguous was the thing that we were looking for. And with contiguous selected, we can just press Shift F5 and we can select the foreground color. And now we've added that one. And Shift F5 on that. But we want to get rid of this spot over there. So now we have our guy all set up and he looks pretty good. So that's the basics of making a pixel art character. He's now, what is he, 121 by 128, and he is index colored, and here's our color table. That's our transparent color. So we actually have him only at about 13 colors. So there you are. I think if we wanted to like choose a different color and draw, that's the only thing I don't understand why it's not drawing. But ultimately we have completed the task, and there you are. I hope that you've gotten something out of it. Thank you for watching.